This is Entering Tyngsborough, a podcast from the town of Tyngsborough on all things municipal government and the community. I'm Rony Camille. Thanks for joining us. Today on the podcast, we sat with Brenda Feeney and Lauren Woekel from the finance department, talking about tax collection, treasurer, and assessment. Let's dive into the conversation. This is Entering Tyngsborough. I'm Rony Camille, and today on the podcast, we have two town officials, my coworkers, Lauren Woekel and Brenda Feeney from the finance department. Lauren is the town assessor. Brenda is the tax collector and town treasurer. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I always start the program with, tell me your role with the town for somebody that may not know anything about municipal government. So I'll start with you, Lauren. What exactly is an assessor?
Well, the main role of the assessor is to value real and personal property for taxation. The department is manned by two people, myself and my assistant. We're governed by a 3-member elected board. And then the department itself is overseen by the Massachusetts Division of Local Services. In addition to property values, we also deal with motor vehicle excise tax, charitable exemptions for like religious properties. We do chapter land, very myriad of different roles that we play.
Brenda, what exactly, and you have two roles. Mm-hmm. What does a tax collector do? What does a treasurer do?
So I get the bills from Lauren, make sure they get to the printer on time, and then we collect them all. So any bills that go out, I would certainly, after a certain amount of time, turn them to demand bills or move them on to the deputy collector for collection from a third-party vendor. And as the treasurer, I balance the bank accounts and make sure that the payables are done and just keep track of everything that's going on.
And we'll get to these kind of terms in a bit because you mentioned some things and I'm like, I've got questions about that. But before we get into all the nitty-gritty of it, how did you guys, both of you, and I'll start with you, how did you get into this type of work in local government?
So
you've been with the town how long?
I have been here since 2014.
So almost
11.
No, it is almost 11 years. Yeah,
Yep.
10 years. Yep.
July will be 11 years.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
And how did you get into it? You live in town.
Yes, I do. Well, I was working for a lockbox department doing the collection of municipality bills. And then a clerk position opened in the tax office. And I tried out for it and I got it.
I remember when you started and I was we kind of were ships. I was leaving the org and I came back. So, yeah. And Lauren, how did you get into being an assessor?
Well, when I first started, it was back in 1997. I didn't know what assessors did, but I was living in Methuen, and a job opened up in the city hall in the assessor's office, and I was, newly married, wanted to have a family, so I said this would be a great place to work close to home. And then here we are, all these years later, it has become a career. So I've been working in Tyngsborough since 2011 as a chief assessor.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you. So it's not something I set out to be. I'm going to be an assessor someday. It is definitely something I fell into. I was always interested in real estate. So it just, developed into a career, and then it's sort of a little niche that you fall into.
And born and raised in Methuen.
Yes.
And you born and raised in Tyngsborough? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys kind of kept your local roots in Massachusetts. So, all right. Now we have that out of the way. We'll get back to some personal stuff later. For people that, come in sometimes to the building and may not understand how it all kind of works. So let's talk about property bills. How is an assessed value of somebody's home determined in town?
So we value all real estate based on market value. So yearly, we adjust the property values, and we do that by analyzing sales. So the assessment date for property valuation is January 1st. So we always look at a complete year's worth of sales. So for instance, for FY25, the assessment date is January 1. So we were looking at calendar year 2023 sales that have taken place.
And you factor in all the sales in town.
All of the sales in town, and then like for the primary sources, it's residential, primarily in Tyngsborough. So single-family homes are the largest group of properties, and so we kind of extrapolate those into style. We look at all of the colonials, we look at all of the ranches, and the ages and location, and you break those all down, and we take a look at what properties we're selling for based on what our assessment is, and then that comes to an assessment to sale ratio, and we need to be within 10% in order to have our values approved by the state. So if our values are too low, it's indicating that we need to adjust the values higher. If the values are too high, we would have to adjust them lower. And that's done on an annual basis.
Okay, and so what is the current property tax rate in town, and how is that established yearly? Do you guys set it, or does the state does this Commonwealth set it for you?
Well, how it is set is it's determined annually. We do have, the current rate is $12.34 per thousand of value. It's determined at the classification hearing, which we hold jointly with the Board of Selectmen. So at the classification hearing, we present the selectmen with options to split the tax rate, which would be to have a separate tax rate for residential property and a separate rate for commercial, industrial, and personal property. They can adopt an open space discount, adopt a residential exemption, or a commercial industrial exemption. Small commercial exemption. The three options, there are no open space land classified in town, so we don't do that, and we don't recommend the residential exemption or the small commercial exemption. They just don't make sense for Tyngsborough.
What's an exemption? Just somebody that's listening, it's like, I don't know what that means. That means that they don't have to pay in?
Yes, it would be an exemption to real estate taxes, a portion of real estate tax. Okay. So, and then how it's determined, the rate, we don't set the rate. A lot of factors come into it, the town's financial information, the finance director is involved in the process as well, but then we determine the tax levy, which is the amount to be raised through property taxes, and then we take that town valuation and you just do a calculation. You're just dividing that to come up with what that rate is. But it's also looking at what the town's overall budget is.
Sure.
To come up with what that tax rate will be.
Got it. So you just said $12.34 per thousand. Is that the value of the house? Or is that, what do you mean by that?
No, that's the rate. So you would take the property valuation. So the average valuation for FY25 was about $613,000 for Tyngsborough. So you would take the $613,000 value and you multiply that by $12.34, and that will give you the annual tax amount for that property.
Okay, so if a resident right now they just do the math, they just do $12.34 times 1,000
times the value of the property. Yes.
And that will give you the number.
Yes, that's your annual tax.
And then you divide that by 4. It's quarterly.
Yes, their bills are issued in quarterly installments.
Okay, it's not a lot of math.
Yes.
Next question to ask to both of you. Can you guys explain the billing cycle for real estate taxes and the due dates that residents should be aware of?
So it's quarterly billing, which is every 3 months. And it starts at the beginning of the fiscal year. So
which is July 1.
The fiscal year starts July 1st. So quarter 1, payment due August 1st. Quarter 2 is November 1st. Quarter 3 is February 1st. And quarter 4 is May 1st.
Okay, and that's the property. What about the other things like excise or sewer, and are they all the same?
Sewer bills are sent out semi-annual, which means every 6 months, and we bill in the middle. So the bill that covers July 1st to December 31st is sent out in September and due in October.
Okay.
The bill that is covering January 1st to June 30th is the second half, and that goes out in March and is due in April.
Okay. And for sewer, sewer and the other one, the motor vehicle excise, is the schedule the same, or is it also different? Or is it all?
Motor vehicle excise is sent out several times a year. So the first commitment, which is the biggest commitment, goes out in February, and that covers from January 1st to December 31st. It's the biggest billing, and if you do not buy, sell, trade, cancel your plate, that is the only excise bill you will get for the year.
Why is it called a commitment? Why? I mean,
Because the amount that we are to collect it's a committed amount. It means I have to collect that money.
got it. Okay.
That's my goal. So she gives me the committed dollar amount, and I need to collect that amount of money.
Okay. Per motor vehicle in town.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Which actually brings me another question, which we've talked off air about this.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, I just learned this today. Because I don't reside in Tyngsborough. I reside in another community in another state. When, let's say, you move out of Tyngsborough, you have a motor vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and you go to a new state, you get new plates, you move on with your life, you sold your house, all that, and then, surprise, you get a bill from the town of Tyngsborough, from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts saying, hey, by the way, you owe us money. And people are like, I don't live in Tyngsborough anymore.
So
What happens?
you didn't notify anyone that you canceled your plate, or you didn't cancel your plate and just assume that.
You assume when you went to register your new car that they would automatically cancel out.
Right, but they don't do that.
They don't do that.
And you should never just assume that they're going to, because sometimes I have people that say, well, my insurance company told me that they canceled this plate. And I'm like, but they didn't. Even though they told you they were going to, maybe they got sidetracked, something happened, but it really ultimately is up to you to make sure that this is done. Otherwise, you're going to get a bill. Can you get it abated? Yes, but it goes to the date of cancellation.
So it would be,
Unless you can prove with your new registration that
Right.
you
Registered.
left the state. If you're just leaving town, you're better off to just pay the bill and then change all of your stuff over to the new town.
Got it. Otherwise, you'll just kind of be.
You'll just get
You'll be on the hook.
Yeah.
For it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yes, because if you just move within Massachusetts, you are not going to get a bill from the new community until the following calendar year, because a bill has already been issued to you. And so in that case, we just suggest you pay the bill issued to Tyngsborough, because the amount of the tax is going to be the same regardless of what community you're living in. It's valued, it's $25 per thousand across the state. So in a case with that, you're not entitled to an abatement if you stay within Massachusetts.
So
if you do move out of state, yes, you can file, and abatements are filed through the assessor's office.
Got it. And it doesn't matter whether you live in Tyngsborough or in Atoll or
Anywhere in
Massachusetts,
Massachusetts.
Yes.
or on
Yeah,
the Cape.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So back to, we're talking about cars. What exactly is a motor vehicle excise tax? How is it assessed?
So the motor vehicle excise tax the rate is $25 per thousand of value. The valuation of the vehicle is determined by the manufacturer's suggested retail price of the vehicle new. Then it is discounted each year up to the age, when a car reaches age 5. So in the first year, it would be 90%. So you'd be assessed at 90% of that MSRP. Then year 2, 60%. Year 3, 40. Year 4, 25. And then age 5, 10%. And then any time after that,
It stays
it stays level at the 10%. And so this is all determined by the state of Massachusetts, and everyone, all communities are valued the same way. We don't determine the values of the vehicles. It's based under the, Massachusetts law and the statute. So all vehicles are valued the same way.
So whether my car is from 2020 or from 1990, it is still
based on that MSRP of the vehicle when it was new. And yes, once it has reached age 5, it'll be 10% of that MSRP, so you will always pay that flat amount for as long as you have the vehicle registered.
Okay, got it. What are the payment options available, Brenda, for residents to pay their bills?
So if it's $50 or under, you can come to the window and pay cash. $50 and under. Anything, and that's for one bill. It doesn't, unless if you added all your bills together and it's still less than $50, you can pay with cash at the window. You can always write a check. You can add all of your bills together and write one check if you want to. You don't have to write a check for each individual bill. We get that a lot. And you can also make your payments on the Unipay system, which is on the Town of Tyngsborough's official website. You look for the icon that says "Pay your bill."
How are you able to, somebody comes in and said, all right, they come in, they're all flustered, they come to the first window, which is, the town clerk, and we send them to your window, and, they got to pay the house, they got to pay the sewer, they got to pay the car. How do you figure all of that out and on the back end? And you get one check, and you're like, all right, we got to take this amount for this, how do you do that?
So I add them all together and make sure the check matches. And then because I post a lot of the work too, but I try to, give it to the girls to post. So I'll write each bill number and what it is on the check itself so that they are aware that all of these bills are being paid. And then once we are done posting everything, there's a batch report that has a total, and we also tally the checks, and it has to match. That's how we...
Right.
I always check the math. I check everyone's math that comes to the window.
Sure.
I'm like, hold on, I got to check your math.
One thing I would like to point out about the payments and online payments, because a lot of people like to pay online now, but however, if you are getting an adjustment to an excise tax bill, you cannot pay the adjusted amount online.
Why is that?
That is because the file is uploaded with the original bill details, and it's not live. So when we adjust the bill and make an abatement to it, that is not a live database. So you can't make that adjusted payment online. You can only pay the full amount.
But that also is only excise tax. Any other bill, you can pay any amount you want to that bill. But excise tax requires you to pay exact. So whatever the amount is that's due, that's what's required to pay.
And you can't pay less or make a phone call and say, hey, I can only spot.
No, you cannot. It won't allow it. It just won't let you go any further. Unfortunately. I can't update. There's so many bills. Like right now, this commitment that just went out, there's over almost 13,000 bills that just went out.
Wow.
13,000.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's the largest commitment we issue for excise tax, and I think throughout the year, I think we have a total of 7 commitments that are issued throughout the year.
And they progressively get smaller.
And this information with the excise tax comes from the Registry of Motor Vehicles. So anything that's registered with the Registry of Motor Vehicles is sent to the municipalities for tax billing. So any information, because one of the things we can talk about is like the address changes. We don't change any addresses when it comes to motor vehicle excise tax. That is strictly coming from the RMV's database. So if people have any address changes, place of garaging changes, that is all done through the RMV. We have no control to change any of that information.
And so if somebody moves, it's their responsibility to contact the RMV and make those changes. They can't just say, hey, I've now moved to the other side of the state or Florida, right?
Right. Or if there's, Brenda had one earlier today that had an incorrect address, and I haven't lived there in so long. Well, we didn't make those changes. That's the last address the RMV had on record for you, and that's where the bill was sent.
Got it.
And it just so happened to be in Florida, now that you mention it.
There's a trend here. It's a trend. We got snowbirds that, or people that are retiring to Florida.
I don't know. It was just, I don't know why I never lived at that address. And I'm like, well, somebody changed it to this address, and it was not the town of Tyngsborough. We are not allowed to touch your anything to do with your, registry of motor vehicle items. We don't touch any of it.
Interesting. I feel like we're going all over the place.
Yes.
But so, all right. Bills due, or people forget that their bills are due, and the time has elapsed, right? What happens after that?
So for real estate, personal property, and sewer billing, it's 14% interest after the due date. Not from day one when you get the bill, after the due date, and you have 30 days to pay your bill. I don't always apply the interest to everyone's bill. It depends. If you came in the day after the due date, I'm not going to charge you 14% interest on that.
Sure.
It's change. When it starts getting to be like a week or 2 weeks late, then, now I have to do it because it's starting to get up there, and I can only waive so much,
Sure.
I'm not allowed to. And then excise tax is 12%.
Why the difference between the two?
I don't know.
Is that set by the Commonwealth?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think it's a statute.
I'm like, I don't know.
All right, so after a while, let's say somebody, I don't know, things happen in life, right? And you have a bill and it goes to collections, a third party, right? Which is your deputy collector.
Yeah.
Which is Kelly and Ryan, which is a private company that the town has contracted with other communities, right?
For our excise
Right,
taxes
for
only.
only
Yeah,
excise.
'cause we do
not
the rest.
You do the rest. Okay. What happens after that? It goes to Kelly and Ryan, and somebody says, "Oh my God, I forgot this bill." Blah blah blah. They come to the tax window. Are you able to take care of it then, or do they have to contact?
If it's only in the demand stage, which is we've added the $15 in interest, I can pay that at the window. My suggestion to anyone that comes after that, if it's gotten the warrant put on it and the notice, that adds another $22 to the bill. I send them to the deputy's webpage because once you pay it there, it's cleared. Then when the deputy sends me my reporting, I post it on our side in Munis and take it off the books completely. But at least it's not going to move any further because now it's been taken off on the deputy's page.
Got it. And how often are you guys chatting with each other? Like, let's say
Me and the deputy?
right. Like, let's say somebody's, something was due, on a Monday, right, and they come in and pay it on Tuesday. When is it reflected that they're paid?
So the deputy puts out the same bills as me, but you cannot pay your bill at the deputy until it goes to the warrant stage.
Which is, all right, so you just mentioned two things. So there's the demand, which is like what's that window?
I can put a demand on a bill at 14 days.
Okay.
But I never do that. Usually it's a month and a half
Got it.
before we go to we
next
call it the
level.
next
The
step.
next level.
So before I put the $15 on there, and especially with this really big commitment, I kind of try to wait as long as I can until the deputy will call me and be like, hello, you're going to move to the next.
Sure.
I do try to wait as long as I can because it is such a big commitment. I don't want to have to, reprint 10,000 bills because I'm in a rush to get that money.
Sure.
I'd rather just wait it out a little bit. So typically it's usually a month or 2 months past the due date when we go to the next step on those kinds of bills. But then, the demand process, we process that in town. But once it goes past that, you need to pay it at the deputy. And then there's people that have paid, they've sent us their bill and paid it with us, but not on the deputy's page. If you call me and tell me that, and I look in my system and see that it's paid, but it's still sitting at the deputy, I can call them and take that bill off instead of you paying it and now
Twice.
yeah.
Right.
And now I have to send you a refund because you paid it twice when you could have made a phone call and I could have fixed that for you.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Okay.
One of the things I'd like to point out with the deputy collector is that when it gets to that warrant stage too, then it's putting a hold on the renewal of registration or driver's license. So when people do not pay their excise taxes, and this happens a lot of times if people move and, you know, they don't cancel the plates and, you know, things down the road pop up because other states are now reciprocal with the state of Massachusetts database. So they may be they may have moved out of state and then come back into Massachusetts and then find out they've got this outstanding excise tax that's been unpaid, and there's a hold at the Registry of Motor Vehicles until that gets cleared up.
Wow.
And then if it is at that stage with the deputy collector, because we can make abatements to the deputy collector's system as well if people have, you know, adjustments that need to be made, we can make those adjustments to their system, and then they can immediately release the hold at the registry. So if someone's, you know, hey, I'm trying to buy a new vehicle and I have this outstanding bill, but I need an adjustment to be done. So then we can go enter it into their system, and I think it's within 20 minutes or so that it updates to their RMV data.
Got it. We could talk about motor vehicle and excise all day.
Yes.
Is that the most frequently asked when people come to see you guys?
Yep.
Is that the most, like, I wouldn't say problematic, but that the most common issue? Is it motor vehicles?
Yes.
Well, especially now, because this is the first commitment just went out last week. So we're getting, you know, numerous phone calls, emails, with people who don't have the vehicle any longer. What do? I just got this bill, or, you know, I've moved out of town. What do I do? So it's just following the abatement process. And there is a process. However, there's an application to be completed, and we need to know what happened to both the vehicle and the plate. So if you retain ownership of a vehicle, you're not entitled to an excise tax abatement. So you need to transfer title to the vehicle or register it in another state in order to apply for an abatement, and either cancel or transfer the registration.
I just thought of this. Now, what if somebody gets into an accident? You know, somebody gets in an accident, the car is totaled, right? Cars get taken away. The last thing you're thinking about is the vehicle and
your excise bill.
And the excise bill and the plate. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's on some
it
scrapyard
could.
somewhere.
Yes, it could have gotten taken to the junkyard, and unfortunately, a lot of, you know, people who do deal with the insurance companies assume that the insurance company will take care of it. So if the plate was on a vehicle that was totaled and destroyed, the plate will still need to be canceled, and that can be done online through the RMV website as well. It's a very simple thing to do. Then an emailed cancellation receipt is sent, and then that can be sent to us in addition to a total loss letter from your insurance company or a junkyard receipt to file the abatement application.
Okay. All right. And we're going to move on from that. Community Preservation Act, CPA. You and I, Brenda, have talked about this. Mm-hmm. You've given me a copy of bills. We will put it up on the screen, you know, in post. What exactly is the Community Preservation Act? And actually, you recently went through your bills have changed in the past, 2 years, a year and a half? Mm-hmm. What people used to get looks a little different. So people will have questions like, I've never seen this before. What exactly is Community Preservation Act?
So it's Proposition 2.5. We can collect up to 3%, and it gets used for, like, when they redid the old town hall, they used some of that money for that. The Winslow School, you know, keeping the parks and all of that seated, or, you know, buying benches to put in the park, just all kinds of different things like that.
And how is that calculated?
The CPA, it's a CPA surcharge. Now, this was something I want to mention that it was voted and approved at town meeting and town election back in 2001. So it was effective since fiscal year 2002.
So it's been 24 years.
Yes, it's been instituted in town for a long time. I think we just recently had generated a lot of questions because the tax bills had changed and people, what is this tax? So the townspeople at that time did vote for it, and the 3% surcharge is the max that can be taxed. And how it is calculated, on residential properties, there's a $100,000 valuation exemption. So, for instance, I made an example here. So if you have a $500,000 home, we reduce that by $100,000. So that will get you to $400,000, and then you multiply that by the current tax rate. For this example, I'll say $10, and that will give you an annual tax bill of $4,000, which is then multiplied by 3%. So your community CPA surcharge tax would be $120. In commercial and industrial properties, they do not receive an exemption. So they're based on the full value times the tax rate times 3%.
That's a lot of math.
It
Yeah,
is.
our jobs are a lot of math.
Well, that is a lot of math, and you got to make sure the math is mathing on that. So, okay, got it. Thank you for that explanation, and hopefully people can get a more further explanation by calling you or, when we post information online. So, another question that I have is supplemental tax assessment. We obviously have a big project that has come into town, right? Over the last few months, we've had a few people come into the town offices. To, they've gotten the bills. Can you explain what a supplemental tax assessment is and when it applies to property owners?
Yes, a supplemental tax bill. This can be confusing, but is a state law. I believe it's General Law, Chapter 59, Section 2D, which is an automatic statute to follow unless the Board of Selectmen has opted out of it, which Tyngsborough has not. So we have been taxing supplemental tax bills, since this law was approved. And how it is calculated, it is triggered when an occupancy permit is issued and the building value increases more than 50% of the previous value. So not every property will be assessed one. It depends on the previous value and if that, timing of the occupancy permit and the final value triggers an increase of over 50%.
So somebody buys a house, new construction, and they paid a quarterly, and then they get a supplemental, and they come in like, why did I get these two bills for? Why? It's because the house was not complete.
Yes, it's an additional bill, one-time bill, in addition to your regular quarterly payments. So, for instance, I can probably put an example this way, is that say a property had been assessed for just the foundation initially. So they get their quarterly bills. They're very low based on just a foundation that had been there. So a property is issued an occupancy permit, say September 1st. So now the property is 100% complete. So the supplemental bill will be based on September 1st through June 30th, the end of the fiscal year. And it's going to be based on the additional value at that unit being 100%, deducting only the foundation value. So you're only being taxed on that additional value at the time of completion and for that specific period of time.
So what should new homeowners be aware if they're getting, once, they close on a house, they move in and all that, should they be aware that this is coming?
Not for just new homeowners. It would be, it's typical for new construction. that this would certainly, pose a possibility of getting a supplemental tax bill, not just a new homeowner. This would be for any occupancy permit. It could be for a large addition, and that increases the building value over 50%. We have commercial projects that are being issued supplemental tax bills because the value is going up significantly. It's not just for when properties sell. It is strictly for an occupancy permit being issued, and more so with new construction.
Okay, got it. So let's say I buy a property in Tyngsborough, whether it's new construction or a house that's been here forever, and I get a tax bill, but it has the previous owner's name. Why is that?
So the person that owned the house on January 1st has to stay on the bill. It's the law from the state. I don't know really why they have to stay on there. Do you know why they have to
I think
stay
it's
on
just with the statute with the assessment date. So our assessment date is January 1, and the legal owner as of January 1 should be listed on the tax bill as well.
And it stays on the entire year, and then it switches over
Yes.
until you get something from the Registry of Deeds.
Yes. Well, when we get something from the Registry of Deeds, we update that on a monthly basis. So
Okay.
we're aware of the sale. However, that prior owner's name still needs to stay on the bill. We do issue it as like a care of to the new homeowner. And it does cause some confusion too. And we
Not my
actually,
bill.
Yeah. We have
Yes,
the
why
name
is-
in a
yes.
different spot now.
Yes, yes. So that
So we
has
can
helped.
just mail it to the new owner, and then the subsequent owner's name is down in the body of the bill further. So it's out of the mailing area.
Yes, and then that is an enhancement with the new
Yeah.
software and the new billing, which we didn't have that before. And a lot of times it would have the previous owner's name on like the first line, and then that would get forwarded where they had been going, and then the new owners were not receiving the bills. So,
And
but by
a lot
law
of
it
people
needs
call.
to stay.
A lot of people will call and say, "Hey, I got this bill. That I sold this property," and I'll be like, "Well, can you give me the bill number?" And I'll resend out the bill because I do that. I actually, when we have a new billing go out, I spend a lot of time doing that. Answering phone calls and resending out bills and such like that.
Sure. Wow. What options are available for residents who may have difficulty paying their bills on time? I mean, we've seen it in the last 5 years, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
with the pandemic and the economy and all that. Like, what resources are available?
So there's a lot of different things you can do, but I know the very first is to start here with the tax office. If you are say we're starting fiscal 25 and you're still behind a couple of quarters or even one quarter in fiscal 24, if you come and see me and we just sit down and talk about it, and I can put you on a payment plan, as long as you stick to the payment plan, we can certainly just keep going forward on that amount every month or whatever like that, so that you don't get so far behind that now it's a big problem.
And are there any programs, I don't want to say relief programs, but programs or exemptions that residents, particularly seniors or even veterans, should be aware of that are living in town?
Yes, we have numerous real estate tax exemptions that are available. They can range from seniors, age 65 and older, surviving spouses. There are income and asset requirements that do need to be met. There are exemptions for veterans, disabled veterans. They need to have a minimum 10% service-connected disability. There's exemptions available for people who are legally blind. There are abatements available for the community preservation, the surcharge. Those have income requirements for people who are under 60 and over 60. We have a property tax deferral program for people age 65 and older. We have Citizens Taxation Aid. That is a separate committee that accepts applications. Those exemptions are granted based on donations that are received from other taxpayers. And we have hardships, temporary hardship deferrals. There's numerous programs that are available. One of the things that I just suggest is that anyone having any type of difficulty or issue, just call us. We'll do our best to try to help.
And where can residents find more information about their tax bills and assessments?
Well, we have all the information posted on our website. All these applications are available with instructions, information that's needed to, be supplied with them. Visit us at the office, call us, email us, we are available.
Wonderful. Lastly, before we wrap up, share something that residents may not know about you. I mean, I know a few things. We spend a lot of time together. Obviously, we all love listening to music, but share one thing that residents might not know.
About me?
Yes.
Let's see. I live in town. I've lived in town most of my life, and I really love Tyngsborough. And I'm so happy that I got the job that I have right now. I just adore working where I work and doing the things that I do, and I'm always around to help them.
I was really hoping you'd get into your music taste and
No.
the horror thing that you. You
Oh, my
you like
horror.
horror music. You like films.
I like anything Michael Myers. Michael Myers, Jason, all my horror dudes.
And you, Lauren.
Yes. Well, I'm not a horror fan.
I am.
But one of the things about me, I'm a big animal lover. I've got, 4 dogs at home and a cat.
Did not know that.
Yes. And one of the things I enjoy most is spending time up north on Lake Winnisquam, out boating and enjoying sort of my second home, which is, another one of my happy places.
Wonderful.
And camping at the beach.
Yeah, that's right. You do camp. You do a
Camping
lot of
at the
camping.
beach.
Yeah,
Oh my God, that's my favorite thing to do ever.
that's great.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add before we sign off for residents or anyone listening? Okay. Lauren Woekel, Brenda Feeney with Tax Collector's Office and the Assessor's Office. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.